What I'm going to do in this short video is demonstrate how to use pivot tables in order to summarize data that's in a table using Google Sheets. So you can see here I've got a very simple Google Sheet. The data is about students and the course that they've chosen, as well as an extracurricular activity that they've chosen. So you can see each row is about a student and the fields are the columns. So that's the data, so you can see there. So Alexandra is a female in Year 8 from New South Wales. She's doing the English course and her extracurricular activity is drama club. Now, while you've got data like this, you will want to summarize that type of data. You might want to find out, for example, how many of each gender are in each extracurricular activity, or how many students from each course are doing each extracurricular activity. Now, the tool to allow you to do that is a pivot table. So in Google Sheets, to use the pivot table, you simply click on the data menu and then you can see there's the choice of a pivot table. Now it will detect the range, so you can see here that it's got from A1 down to F31, and I'm going to put my pivot table in a new sheet. So at the moment I've only got one sheet in this Google Sheet, and it's going to add a second sheet here which is going to be my pivot table. So then I can choose to create that, and you'll see that it comes up with an empty pivot table. So it's asking me now what data I want in my rows of my pivot table and what data I want in my columns of my pivot table. And over here on the right hand side is where you would actually tell the spreadsheet that. So if we were wanting to look at gender and subjects, then let's say that our rows is going to contain the two genders, male and female, and our columns are going to show the course that the students are in. And then the values, which is this section here of the table, the middle section of the table, are going to come from a count of those. So we also want the the values to also be related to the course. So I've just chosen values and I'm going to add the course. And you'll see that when you click that it actually realizes that the course needs to be counted. And so it's counting the number of students that have chosen each course there. And you'll see now I've got a nice summary table. So I've got 15 females. You can see my grand total over here. 3 of them have chosen art, 4 English, 4 maths and 4 science. I've also got 15 boys, males, and 4 have chosen art, 4 English, 4 maths and 3 science. And so that's showing me a summary of the gender related to the course. Now if you want to create another pivot table, you simply go back to the class data, and this time you might want to find out how many students, as I said at the start, from each course are doing each extracurricular activity. And so let's once again go to our data menu, choose the pivot table, and we're going to relate, remember, course and extracurricular activities. It's detected the range. Let's create it, and you'll see it puts a new pivot table sheet in. This time we want the rows to contain the course, the columns to contain the extracurricular activity, and once again we're going to need to count our extracurricular activities for each course. So our values, we're going to add the extracurricular activities, and once again Google Sheets has realized that we need to count those, and so now you can see from our art students, 3 of those are doing cricket, 2 are doing debating, and 2 are doing soccer. So that's 3 plus 2 plus 2, which gives us a grand total of our 7 students doing art. And you can see that summary information for each of our courses related to each of our extracurricular activities. Now that's all well and good, however people like pictures, and so once you've created your pivot tables, what you'll also want to do is be able to chart that. So in order to chart it, you'll see that we've got our grand total column here. However, that value 7 is really doubling up on these 3 values here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select the part of the pivot table that I want to chart, which is just the courses and the extracurricular activities, and I'm going to ignore the total row and the total column. Then I'm going to come up here to the chart tool, so that's on the toolbar up there, the insert chart button, and you'll see that when I push that, it's then able to create for me a summary chart that's showing for art that there are 3 students in cricket, using the key over here on the right hand side, 2 in debating and 2 in soccer, and you can see the same for English, Maths and Science. And so this then gives you a visual view of that same data. Let's move it out of the way of there. So a visual view. And if you like, what you can do is you can actually change the chart type. Now, the most appropriate chart for this data is a column chart. However, if you wanted to show that, let's say we wanted to show that as a stacked column chart, then what we might be able to do is choose the stacked column chart layout here. And you can see now that our 7 students have been stacked into our cricket, debating and soccer for the art value there, and so on for the others. And so you then relate to the key to be able to see the different types of extracurricular activities that each student from these courses is involved in. And if we jump across to our other pivot table, once again this is our males and females doing each course. So if we select the data we are interested in, once again ignoring the total column and the total row, come across to our chart value, and you can see we've now charted our female data against the courses and our male data against the courses. You can also edit other values, so if you wanted to switch the axes around, then you can play around with these settings over here. Switching the rows and columns would give us the males versus females for each of those courses. However, that's not particularly useful there, so let's put it back the other way, which shows us the males and females in each course. You can also rename, so it makes it it's a good practice to not leave the default names here saying pivot table 11, because once you start adding a number of them, you'll forget which pivot table was which. So if you come across to the pivot table and just use the drop down arrow here, the selection arrow, you'll see there's a choice to rename, and what you can do is say, okay, well this one's comparing gender to courses, so I'm going to rename that. In fact, let's say student gender to course, and this table here, the pivot table, is our student course to to activity. So I'm going to rename this one student course to activity, and so that way your data will make more sense, where you're able to actually click on each of those links as you need them. Hopefully that helps you with pivot tables and then charting those pivot tables as well.